Welcome to Building Fortunes Radio. Make sure you check us out at buildingfortunesradio.com. Along with Kisk, our Keep It Simple Circle marketing partners, we are here to help our Youmongus AM and Youmongus FM radio customers build their businesses and make the world a better place. At Building Fortunes Radio, we know how much your business means to you and the people important to you. So join us to make the world a better place. Spread the word, tell a friend, and go make a difference in your world. Now on to our show with your host, Peter Mingils. Take it away, Peter.
Hello, everyone. Peter Mingils here. You are listening to us on the Building Fortunes Radio Network on the Count on the Truth radio show. We do this radio show with Ken Nielson every Tuesday around 8:30-ish, if you will, Eastern Time. And we post it up on the website, and then it goes everywhere. After that, it's on Building Fortunes Radio. It goes on buildingfortunesradio.com and .net and Youmongus Radio, and then we also post it up on Amazon, and after Amazon it kind of goes around the world to Apple's podcasts, and then it goes to Spotify, and then all those other ones, not necessarily in the same order. And recently we also kind of figured out how to put them on YouTube and Facebook too. So if it looks like Ken Nielson is everywhere, it's because he is. He's all over the place. In addition to the domain name countonthetruth.com. CountOnTheTruth.com is the domain name we picked to do these radio shows on, and it's also the name of the radio show. And one of the reasons why we did it this way was because when Kent got started, we were talking about some stuff, and he says, you know, I need a way to be able to get in front of most people or more people, so we said radio shows are going to be it. Then it was going to be, and a skeptical crowd, because a lot of people are just naturally kind of skeptical. There's a lot of stuff online you really don't know, especially now with AI. The scammers have gotten better with just about everything, and we were looking for a name, and CountOnTheTruth.com was a domain name that he could get or already had, and that's how we got started. So we're going to sling some sentences together for those people that are listening in, and if you're looking at the calendar, it's already the end of July. Oh my gosh, like the next show we do is going to be in August already. That means like 7/10 of the year, almost 7/10 of the year, almost 2/3 of the year is almost already over. And the reality is going to be like, yikes. If you're either ahead or behind on your goals, you probably need to pick up the pace. So do it while you can. I know the summer is a great time for vacations and relaxation, but you could always make some time to learn something new, and that might make a difference in your world and make your holidays a better place. So Ken, thanks for being here on your own radio show.
Hello, Peter. Hey, great to be connected with you and maybe discuss a few things that's going on out there in that big world of ours, and hopefully make a difference for somebody that's looking for maybe a new path or something that they can do to maybe change their future way, so to speak, and stay focused on the future, because we know that it's easy to get distracted with all the things that are going on and what's happening. But I'm especially appreciative of your inspiration, motivation, and direction, because it seems like you're very grounded as opposed to some of the other options that I have available. So I'm very appreciative of that. And just before we get too carried away or get into the main focus, I'm a little bit curious if maybe have you ever been somewhere where you've had the opportunity to be involved in an earthquake by any chance?
You know, I have. I was in Mexico a long time ago, and on a cliff overlooking the ocean, and it rattled. And I said, what the hell was that? And that was an earthquake. So it was very gentle relative to what you're probably going to describe. But I think I've been there at least once. I don't know if we ever had one. I don't think we've ever had one here in Florida. I think we may have had one in Illinois when I was there, but I don't remember. But certainly never in New York. So I'm pretty much earthquake free.
Okay, well, easy enough. The reason I bring that up, of course, we have some of the radio shows, like I try to mention here when we get started on the episodes, is that we have a radio program, and they talk about on this day in history, and they bring up things, whether it has to do with music trivia or a special event trivia. But in this particular reason I brought that up is because I know that Japan has just had an earthquake of 7.1 to 7.3, and I was looking at some of the pictures and some of the video coverage that they have.
What's just like today?
I think it was today or yesterday, actually.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah. And so I know that on the radio today they said that on 1976, the Tianjin, and I'm sure I didn't say that the right way because it was in northern China, it killed over 300,000 people, and it was the largest loss of life from an earthquake in the 20th century. It was a 7.6 in magnitude. And I thought, wow, I've heard of earthquakes, and I've been in 3 earthquakes that I know about. But to think that that killed 300,000 in northern China, it was just a little bit mind-boggling to me.
Yeah.
And the first earthquake that I experienced was when I was 7 years old, and it was it was just a strange rumbling noise. The bed was shaking, and everything was moving around, and it was just kind of a low noise, groaning noise that I had heard, and I just thought, what in the world was that? And shortly after the bed quit shaking, I remember my mother coming in the room and said, did you feel what that was or know what that was? And I thought, that's one of the craziest things I had ever experienced. And so we went outside to see if anybody knew what was going on. And there really wasn't anybody outside, but later in the day we'd heard about where the epicenter was of the earthquake was probably about 20 miles north of where we lived at the time. And it was they were just getting to the point where they were using seismographs and different ways of measuring the how strong they were and where they were located and how deep in the earth they were, etc. But there were some really crazy things that happened. And it was interesting why some places were affected and some places weren't affected. So I just thought I'd kind of bring that up because I know the other 2 after that, when you feel the earth shake and do certain things, you go, boy, I'm pretty sure that was an earthquake. And you go, I wonder how far away or how much damage it did. And there were buildings where the walls had toppled and the roofs had caved in, and other places it didn't seem like it had done anything. So, and I know that when you get, and that one, the first one that I was in, I think was either 6.1 or 6.3. And I know when you start getting up into the 7s, things can get pretty serious. And so when it said that 7.6, which is a little bit more closer to the 8, had killed 300,000 people in northern China, there's got to be something going on in Japan with a 7.1. So a lot of people out on the West Coast, they live in those big fault areas, and I have cousins and family in California, and they've learned to just kind of ignore all the different stories, or when they say, oh, they're overdue, and this is going to happen, that's going to happen, but still in the back of your mind, I think that there's got to be a little bit of concern when it comes right down to it, if one of those is going to happen and affect you in your life. So, anyways, a couple other things. In talking to some of the people, the younger people that I know, and with the option, I know that in the prelude there you talked about the fact that we're all over the place, and I hope I'm a positive figure if I'm all over the place, and don't get too confused when trying to help people understand that there's a possibility to change their financial freedom and their time freedom when it comes right down to it with this particular industry that we're involved in, Peter.
Well, my reference of all over the place, meaning like we broadcast this radio show everywhere, so it's all over the place. The content is good. The content is good. And the most important thing that we did this radio show for is because people could hear your voice. And then they could say, I like this guy, and I know I can trust him, so I can count on the truth. So, yes, radio show all over the place, but you are not.
Well, yeah, I guess that's a good point, because I know that I talk to you about it, and sometimes I get a little bit carried away with different subjects. So that was my all over the place. But as far as the industry goes, hopefully we can kind of keep them narrowed down to what we're trying to get across to them and make sense of what's going on, so that they become good skeptics as opposed to bad skeptics. So I'm glad that you clarified that, though, because I could have made that sound like what you were referring to. So we're talking to some of the younger people and kind of what's going on today, because I always tell them, I say, what is old is new and what is new is old. And some of the things that have happened in the past, we've had inflation before, but I don't think it's been as bad as it is now. And they were talking about not only is the husband or, the couple's having to work 2 jobs, it seems like they've got to throw in a 3rd job in there somewhere just to make ends meet or even have a chance at purchasing a home, even if it's an older home, because most of the people that have the older homes that are ready to sell their older homes have gone into them, have refurbished them, have brought them up, have fixed things up, had done some re-innovations on them, and they're still just as expensive as far as the gap goes of trying to get into a home as like it was back in when I was younger. I remember one of the homes that my father had purchased it for $37,000, and it seems like a new vehicle costs that much nowadays. And homes are anywhere from maybe low $300,000s to the middle or upper $400,000, and you're just like, wow. I don't think inflation has kept up with that, because I know that the amount of money that people are making today is nothing, it's actually about the same as what was going on 15, 20 years ago, but the real estate industry has just been blown out of proportion. So that's really the bottom line there. So watching one of these YouTube videos with one of the influencers or a couple of the influencers, it's interesting because most of them I used to think of them as YouTubers, but they're really influencers because they're doing little surveys with different individuals or groups at different places. And what I mean by that is this. They have a lot of these people going to the universities and asking the students about different things. And one of the things that they brought up, other than politics, which is pretty prominent at this point. In fact, it almost gets tiring hearing about so much of the politics that are going on. But they were asking the students what they thought was the most important degrees and the most important things to learn at that level of education. And interesting what they had to say, the number one, it wasn't worthless, but they used the word useless degree at this point, is communications. And it made me, I had to giggle a little bit because I thought, wow, trying to communicate with some of the younger people, because it seems like all they do is text anymore. They've lost so much of their communication skills, and then they ask these students directly which one is one of the most useless degrees, and they say communications. And then they say, what about the second one? Business. And I thought, wow, that's crazy, because to be able to be an entrepreneur, those are 2 skills and abilities that you have to have. You have to be able to communicate. You have to understand business. And that's why I thought maybe that's why there's so much skepticism, other than the fact that people are taking advantage of other people. It is the communications and it is the business side that makes entrepreneurs capable of achieving financial freedom and time freedom, that type of thing. And in going back, I just thought about some of the things that we've been involved in and talked with, because when you were being able to do your certification at the University of Chicago at Illinois, you ran into a gentleman that was a very serious skeptic, and his name was Charles King. And if I remember correctly, Peter, you had the chance to rub shoulders with Charles King and actually help him from being I don't know if I want to call him a bad skeptic, but at least he was an open-minded skeptic to this industry. And if I remember correctly, you actually maybe was part of the solution to the problem of helping him to understand more about this industry. Am I remembering that correctly?
That's pretty close. So what happened was Dr. Charles King was the director of marketing at the University of Illinois in Chicago. So it's a very prestigious school. And he was the director of marketing. And the economy was in a recession. It was back in the 1980s, I believe, or somewhere around the 90s or whatever it was. But it was in a recession. And the dean said, here's the problem. We're trying to graduate students, and these students are graduating and they're not getting jobs. So Dr. Charles, find the best paths for them to go find jobs. And he asked the students, and one of the students said to Dr. Charles, what about network marketing? And Dr. Charles abruptly said, they got to remember, Dr. Charles is about 5'0", little skinny weeny guy, and with a little man attitude. So he's like, son, let me tell you something. I know enough about network marketing to tell you I don't want to do anything with network marketing relative to this college. And the kid said, meaning he was a student, he said to Dr. Charles, Dr. Charles, with as much as I know you don't know about network marketing, if I would have answered a similar question, you would have given me an F. You would have failed me. And Dr. Charles stood up to the guy and said, you know, son, you're right. I don't know about network marketing. I'm violating my own principles. So, oops, I hear something back in your back.
Yeah, we got to get that out of the way there.
That's okay. So Dr. Charles said, hey, listen, you know, with as much as I don't know about it, we should really research it. And then he did. He wound up hooking up with Mark Yarnell, who was Mark Yarnell would have a bigger influence than I ever did on the college course. Mark was a great speaker. And I actually went there as a student after I moved down from Chicago to Florida. And then I went back as an instructor on lead generation. And I can sincerely say I am the most certified network marketer on the planet. And I say that playfully. And the reason why I say that playfully is I paid for the course, got a certificate. Then every time I went as an instructor, I went through the course again as if I was a student, and I demanded another certificate. And I literally was the only one who ever did that every time they went to a course, because all the other instructors, they would do their part, they'd go out in the hallway, they'd go do whatever, they'd only stay for their day. I actually stayed for the whole entire thing, and I made sure I was certified. So yeah, Dr. Charles King was a really good instructor. We have some of his recordings on our Building Fortunes radio site, and the cool thing is he was really good at what he did, but he was a really great example of, wait a minute, I'm going to study this industry and see if it's a viable industry, knowing full well that it has a bad reputation by people do it the wrong way. So does everything else. So he said, you know, we're going to find out if it's real and see if it's a viable thing. And he did that college course every year up until they switched deans, and they never did it for real profit. And with a new dean, Dr. Charles said, you know, I'm getting close to retirement. I don't need to sell this to the new dean. And I don't know if there was a challenge with the new dean or not. But he says, we'll just discontinue it. Actually, they ran it a couple of times in Europe, which I never went to, and as a result of that. But it was a really great certification course. And I had a little bit of influence in it towards the tail end.
Right, okay. Well, it's fascinating that your involvement there and the ability to, at least at that point in someone's lifetime, or their ability to kind of project what they wanted out of the future, so to speak, because they're going there for higher education, and obviously they're there to learn some advanced skills, advanced knowledge, or kind of move into the point where they're going to be able to accomplish what they want to because of what they're thinking that they want to be or where they want to go in life. And I know, for example, my aunt had 3 degrees in the English communications that she was involved in. She had a degree from the University of Denver. She had a degree from the University of Utah in Salt Lake City, and then, of course, she had her schooling at Utah State University. So she had 3 different degrees, which I thought was just crazy. And at the end of her lifetime, after she was through doing her teaching, she actually ended up being a maid at one of the hotel motels with her sister because she was not making enough money to make ends meet with what she had accomplished during her period of time after retiring. And I thought that was the strangest thing in the whole world. I just don't know if she didn't understand how to build a nest egg or put the money, invest it, how to save it or whatever, but she ended up being a maid with one of her sisters. It was just an interesting story to at least have that kind of education, and that's where they ended up. And so I know we talked about some of the other people that had been introduced to network marketing, and one in particular, we talked about Jimmy Smith, and I know you know him as Jimmy Smith the Butcher. Very common story in network marketing. And I thought maybe I've got a little bit about him because I had mentioned, it's been a few podcasts ago, that I was going to put some information on the website about Jimmy Smith and kind of how what had happened to him. And I need to update some things on the website, and I know that there's another platform where the images aren't showing up, so I've got to go through and redo that so that makes sense, because it looks like there's just a lot of holes in some of the things going on there. So maybe what we can do, Peter, is go to commercial break, come back, and I'll explain a little bit about Jimmy Smith, because I know you know Jimmy Smith as well as I do. So I'll turn it back to you to go to commercial break.
Here we go. We'll be right back.
You've been listening to a special broadcast of the Building Fortunes Radio Show on Building Fortunes Radio and the Youmongus Radio Network. If you are interested in the world's best AI receptionist and AI business building platform, you will want to get your AI receptionist from Youmongus.com. Go to the specials page on Youmongus.com. That's YOUMONGUS.com/specials. Explore how small business owners and major corporations are using Youmongus AI receptionists to do everything from answering incoming calls to scheduling appointments and even answering customer service questions. Your AI receptionist can do everything from making sure you never miss a call to texting reminders and follow-ups and even upgrading and closing more sales. Your AI receptionists will help you increase your productivity in just about everything. Building Fortunes Radio suggests you have to check them out on the specials page on Youmongus.com. That's YOUMONGUS.com/specials. You can make your world a better place and help others do the same with the AI receptionists at Youmongus.com. Now, back to our Building Fortunes Radio Show. Take it away, Peter.
We are back. Peter Mingils here with Ken Nielson. We're talking on Count on the Truth. Go to countonthetruth.com for all the things that we're talking about over here. And you're going to kick it off with Jimmy the Butcher. So Jimmy the Butcher is not like the Michael Franchese Jimmy the Butcher from the Mafia or anything else like that. No, Jimmy was a butcher. Jimmy was really a butcher. So it's kind of cool. Nice guy.
Yeah, exactly, and it's pretty incredible because I know some of the things that he talked about in one of the magazines. I'm just looking here to see what it was because this is where I got the information. Because we had him, we knew Jimmy when he was in one of the companies that he was introduced to, and he struggled to make that work as well as he wanted to. And then he was introduced to his second company, and man, that thing really took off. And he always said it was because the people that had showed him how to build that particular business had done things the wrong way. But it was in a magazine called Home Business Connection, and I'm not sure if you're familiar with that particular magazine or not, Peter. You probably heard of it before or seen it.
Yep, I did, yep.
Okay, and his story is in there, and I made sure that I kept track of it because I thought it was a fascinating story. And one of the things that when we ever went to his presentations was the fact that, let's see if I can find that too, he had a particular kind of a philosophical statement that he would make when he would get up and start his presentation. And he would say, if you want something you have never had, you must be willing to do something you have never done. And I know that you've heard that before too, and he doesn't take credit for that particular saying, but that's one of the things that he used to say. And what was so amazing about that is I'll just kind of explain this, and you might want to throw something in there if you hear something that kind of triggers a thought or whatever. It says here that former butcher becomes a millionaire, and it says, read how Jimmy Smith went from earning $20,000 per year as a butcher to bringing in to $1 million with a home-based business. And what it was is just like you had mentioned, he'd spent most of his life working as a butcher, and his father and grandfather had done the same thing. And growing up, he knew that he was going to follow in their footsteps and admits it was the only thing he thought he could do to make money in this world. Now, for us as a kid, when we were going to school, and I'm not sure how different this was for you, Peter, but when we were being taught of all the things that were out there and all the possibilities, you were either going to be, well, even when I was younger, there was an employment or a job that was known as the milkman. And they actually would deliver dairy products to people. They'd go to work at sometimes 3 o'clock, 4 o'clock in the morning, and they had special places where they'd come and they would leave milk or cheese or whatever the dairy products were so that they were find a place that they get put in the fridge and last a long time. But that was actually considered a very serious job at the time. the other jobs that were it seemed like that were out there were you could be a mailman, you could be a policeman, you could be a fireman. If you were an engineer, oh boy, look out, or even a doctor, that was pretty amazing. The other things that were kind of like your own abilities or had the chance to be something special was something to do with sports, whether it was baseball, football, or basketball. Really wasn't that much soccer available at the time. That was more of a European sport. And then, of course, you had the different things that were associated with car racing, different parts of the country that were specialized in that, or you had to go across the big pond to get over to Europe to do formula racing, etc. So it seemed like you were pretty much decided on if you weren't going to go to school forever to be a doctor, you were either going to be a fireman, a policeman, the mailman, or maybe even something to do with farming or raising cattle. So I don't know if that's kind of how the options were in your growing up period or not. Is there anything that sticks out in your mind, Peter, that might have been a possibility that you thought that was going to be? I know your parents wanted you to be a doctor. Was there something else that you thought that you might end up being as you got older?
You know, I was never really sure. When I was young, I used to be a clammer. So for those people that are unfamiliar with that, there was a flat-bottom boat, outboard motor on the Great South Bay in New York, and I used to dig clams using tongs. I was really intrigued with marine biology. So I thought, wow, what could I do something with marine biology? But I didn't know how. I didn't have anyone to ask. And those are both excuses. But I was a young kid back then, so I didn't really know. And I was thinking marine biology, but couldn't figure out how to make money. And I knew that was going to be a hard job to make money on. Researching, I didn't think was going to pay very well. Clamming certainly wasn't going to pay very well, and especially in the winter in New York. And the reality was I was not sure, so I did what my parents kind of internally suggested, and that's when I was a biology major in school, chemistry major in school, French minor, and I thought maybe being a doctor, and changed my mind after I graduated.
Wow. Yeah, it's amazing how we're kind of directed or pushed towards a certain direction, and then things come along and change our route, so to speak, and we get deflected or move some other way. And I know that there were some sports involved there, too, because you had some of the skills and abilities to do some things. So
yeah, I love football. I was good at football, but I realized I wasn't going to be a professional football player, and it was after high school that I said, okay, got to make a decision. Football is no longer going to be part of my active life because if I'm going to be a doctor, I'm going to need to keep my grades up. My doctor told me don't play football, so I didn't.
Right.
So, I passed up some scholarships and other things like that. It's interesting how, people influence your career or your life's path.
Exactly.
No way in the world am I saying it worked out the right way. I'm not really sure. You can't live your life backwards. But it is what it is.
Yeah. Now, there's a great takeaway there, too. You can't live your life backwards, although maybe you can go back and remember some of the things that have happened and help you to move forward. But, you can't live backwards. So,
can't redo it.
Right.
No second chances.
Yeah. So, and it's just it's fascinating when Jimmy Smith, the butcher, was telling his story, and he says that he raised 6 kids on a butcher's salary, which, never amounted to more than $20,000 per year. And for 40 years, he stayed in this line of work. And he says his family was well taken care of, but there was no room for extras. And so they talked about taking cruises, but they didn't have enough money for the luxuries. They didn't, he just knew how important it was to provide for his family. So he just figured it was fortunate enough to do that. But what happened, he says all of that changed when he had hurt his back, and he spent 14 days in the hospital, and the doctors told him that he needed to stop working as a butcher, or he could end up in a wheelchair from the problem with his back.
Wow.
And he says, I'd been a butcher all my life, and now I was told to get a new career. And he says it was devastating. And so he retired at 56 with a full pension that barely paid the bills. He had 6 kids in private schools, and at that point his life was full of uncertainty. And he said it was at this time that Jimmy discovered network marketing and attended his first meeting. He discovered the real power of network marketing, and now And at this particular time, he had earned more in a week than he did in a year as a butcher. And he says, when I first heard about it, the numbers made sense. It fascinated me then, and it still fascinates me today. And so, 20 years later, he says, it's amazing that everyone wants to have what the butcher has. And so Jim and his wife, Bridget, moved into a custom-built home that they had dreamed of for years. And then his family and his life now is one that dreams are made out of. And I'll give you a number. At this particular writing in the magazine was when he had gone over $21,000 per week in the company that he was in. And he did that in just under a year, which is just amazing. So in the next year, he finally got it together, so to speak, as he says, and he maxed out the company's compensation plan and was making $50,000 per week. And so I told a few people that story, and the younger people, I said, what if it was possible just to make $1,000 a week? Would that help you? And boy, their eyes light up, but they still don't understand the concept of being an entrepreneur, because they're trying to figure out how to sell so many items that they're making, even if they were making $2 profit or $5 profit. They're trying to figure out how many of those items you have to sell to become a millionaire, and how long it would take, and if people are really going to buy what they have or what they need, etc. And so we get to talk about exponential growth and geometric progression, which we've gone over a number of times. But that's why I just wanted to kind of key on some of the things that I think we were brought up with. And we have to be smart skeptics to be able to take a look at the industry and see what it really has to offer and why it works the way that it does. Because I know there are key points in it. There are some compensation plans that I won't work with. There are certain types of products that I kind of pass over. Different services I don't think are as critical or as important in the workforce or in the industry today as it was in the past. Things just change. And of course, I know that one of the big things right now is artificial intelligence. And I think that when AI is used the right way, it's just like anything else. I mean, it can make a huge difference. And sometimes it's used for the good, and sometimes it's just thrown out there. And I don't know if people aren't paying attention to the way that's actually put together, or they're just a little bit sloppy in using the new form of AI that's available. So a lot of things happening. I just think now is a really super time to take a look at what the possibilities are and what it can do for a person's financial future in a fairly short amount of time if they just get in and find out, do a little bit of their homework to see what's available and what we can do to help them. So trying to put everything in there in a short amount of time, Peter, because, again, time has flown by, but hopefully made sense of a little bit of this, that it's really up to people to kind of do their homework and take a little bit of time to use some of their skepticism to say, hey, if these guys really do know what they're talking about, what maybe are some of the opportunities or the potential of what they're talking about, and they'll take a look and see what we've got to offer. So anything you'd like to throw in there before we kind of close things up, Peter?
No, well, just in addition to everything you mentioned, one of the reasons why we do this radio show is they can hear you put together some sentences and hear me kind of compliment some of the sentences that you're putting together, and then make a decision. Say, hey, this guy sounds like a good guy, meaning about you. Seems like he knows what he's talking about. I'd like to learn more. I think I can trust him. So I can count on the truth coming from Ken Nielson. So that's one of the things that we do this radio show for. On its own, there might not be any specific information about what it is specifically, but that's what you have private conversations for. So interest first, take the action, talk to Ken, contact him through countonthetruth.com, and then take it to the next step. And that's the best thing you could possibly do. And what you'll probably find is that it might change the trajectory of your life, because you're going to be 20 or 30 or 40 years older anyway. You might as well change the trajectory where it makes it worthwhile in a home-based business, where you might be able to take advantage of all the things you're referencing and not have to worry about the catastrophic, if you will, decisions that Jimmy the Butcher had to make when he hurt his back. So that was tough, and I know Jimmy's backstory. It wasn't like he just walked from being a butcher to being a millionaire. There was a lot of struggles along the way before he figured it out. So you can take advantage of that, by talking to Ken. So, Ken, I'll let you wrap it up.
Okay, well, I'll just kind of throw this in here because I know there's a lot of great, kind of one-liners or thoughts that take place in the industry, and that's what helps us all be positive and use our mind's ability to grow as we move forward. But it's like they always say, the first step to getting anywhere is deciding that you are no longer willing to stay where you are. And another quote that I think is really important, because when we were teaching hang gliding and being a snowmobile tour guide, we always tell people, if you're going to get to another level or go places that you want to go that others aren't willing to go, doubt kills more dreams than failure ever will. So obviously you don't want to fail in skydiving. That's the wrong way to fail. But if you're taught the right way to do things, the outcomes are positive and are pretty incredible when it comes right down to it. So don't let doubt kill more dreams than failure ever will, because just be willing to fail at a few things, and you'll get past that, and don't let doubt keep you from experiencing the things that you're really supposed to be experiencing. So many thanks again, Peter, and we'll catch up with you the next go-around, which is probably next week in August.
Yep, we'll see everybody then.
You've been listening to Building Fortunes Radio on buildingfortunesradio.com. Thanks for listening. Building Fortunes Radio is part of the Youmongus AM and Youmongus FM radio network. Be sure to check out the buildingfortunesradio.com website to listen to your favorite shows. You can also hear us on Youmongus Radio and wherever you find your favorite podcasts. It's been our privilege to have you listen in. At Building Fortunes Radio, we wish you the success you deserve and are willing to work for.